If you are real warriors, I need you to stay with me for 30 seconds, because what happened today is not just another piece of news. It was a risky move, one of those that could save the season or blow everything up from within. And I know the pain you carry, seeing the team being treated as a past, hearing that it's over, feeling that silent doubt before each game, as if one detail would bring everything down. But now the Golden State has changed the script. And in today's video, I'm going to show you what's behind this decision, the real impact on the cast, and what this opens up to turn the key immediately. Stay with me until the end, because you will understand why, from now on, nothing is the same as before. Before I tell you what this movement was and why it could change the fate of the Warriors, do the following quickly. Subscribe to the channel now, because here you won't miss any updates that really matter, and they always arrive before most. Leave a like too, because this helps the video reach more fans who need to understand what is really happening. And activate the bell to receive an alert as soon as hot news comes out, because the way things are, any detail can turn everything upside down. Combined? Now comment below quickly. Do you think this move was brilliant or too risky? I will read your comment. And stay with me, because the next piece of information is exactly the part that a lot of people are ignoring, and it explains why this decision could change everything from now on. Let me start in the most direct way possible, because I know exactly how you feel when you open YouTube looking for news about the Warriors. You don't just want a cold summary. You want to understand what is really happening, what changes now, and what could change tomorrow. So breathe and stay with me, because today the conversation is serious. Warriors became part of our lives for a reason. We saw a dynasty born, grow, and dominate. There were 4 titles, historic seasons, MVP after MVP, a type of basketball that changed the entire league and, in turn, changed the way everyone looks at the game. And that's why, when I say that we've reached a crossroads, it's not a dramatic exaggeration. It's reality knocking on the door. Look at the scenario. We are 13-12, occupying 8th place in the West. And I know that looking at it like this, someone might say, okay, it's still possible to adjust. But this West doesn't forgive. It's a brutal conference, full of teams ready to win today, full of young teams that run as if they had an infinite battery. And there's also the most uncomfortable detail. The one dominating the moment is precisely the current champion, the Oklahoma City Thunder. It changes the climate, because it's not just competing, it's competing with the best that exists now. And here comes the point that puts everything into perspective. Stephen Curry is 37 years old and still plays at an elite level. That in itself is a sporting miracle. He keeps changing the space on the court. He keeps pushing markings like no one else. He keeps forcing defenses to make bad decisions. But there is a truth that no one likes to face, but everyone needs. Time doesn't negotiate. As much as the Curry is different, the window doesn't stay open forever. And when you understand that, you understand why the franchise is being pushed into decisions that seem unthinkable. Because the question now is not, can we go to the playoffs? The question that keeps those in charge of the team up at night is another. How far is it worth going to maximize what still exists from this Curry era? How far will you really go to try to win another title before this phase ends? And this is where the conversation gets heavy, because we're not talking about getting a rotation player, trying an extra pitcher, moving the end of the bench. That would be treating the moment as if it were ordinary. And this moment is not common. What is on the agenda, according to what has been circulating behind the scenes, is the type of move that changes the franchise. That movement that, if successful, becomes the cover of a documentary. And if it goes wrong, it becomes a scar that takes years to heal. For you to understand why this has reached this point, we need to look at the path that the Warriors have tried to follow in recent years. It was a bold attempt, an almost impossible balance. Remaining competitive now, without abandoning tomorrow. Maintain the winning culture, without falling into the hole of a long and painful reconstruction. Developing young talents, without wasting a 37-year-old genius still playing as a protagonist. Jonathan Kuminga and Brandon Podziemski played a big part in this role. They represent future. They represent high ceilings, growth, energy, the promise that the team doesn't have to die when the curry one day stops. The idea was beautiful. Gradual transition, without collapse, without wasted seasons. But in practice, things didn't go the way we dreamed. Because the team is there, hanging around the 50%, fighting for position, and not necessarily imposing fear as a real candidate for the title. And when you live on details, when you are always on the edge between will and will not, the price is high. Mainly because any absence of curry becomes a warning in front of you. And the recent quadriceps injury was just that, a reminder. One of those reminders that no one wanted to receive, but that arrives anyway. Every game he doesn't play is a piece of the season that won't come back. Every inconvenience, every minute of precaution, every load adjustment, all of this sheds light on a fragility that we try to ignore out of love, out of hope, out of the habit of seeing Curry do the impossible. So the team is faced with that classic dilemma of a champion franchise. Do you continue with the safe plan and hope that the young people mature quickly enough to help now? Or do you make an aggressive move without a network that could yield another title or could dismantle what was built? And according to insider Jake Pfizer, what is being discussed behind the scenes is exactly the most aggressive option. The information is simple to say and difficult to swallow. There would be a willingness to include Draymond Green in a trade with the Milwaukee Bucks as the centerpiece of a package to bring Giannis Antetokounmpo to the Golden State. I'm going to repeat it the way you heard it in your head right now, because I know you paused for a second. Swapped Draymond Green to bring Giannis and put Giannis next to the Curry. This is not ordinary news. This is an earthquake. Because Draymond is not just a player. Draymond is a symbol of an era, is one of the pillars of 4 titles. It is the defensive identity in the form of a person. He's the guy who organizes, shouts, points, corrects, provokes, pushes, inflames. It is the emotional heart of a lot of what we call warrior culture. And according to what was said, Giannis would be the only name in the league that would justify, in the franchise's mind, a step of this size. And if this is true, this sentence alone already says a lot about the level of urgency and ambition that the Golden State would be willing to assume now. Now let's move on to the part that affects the mind of any fan who understands the game, the fit on the court. Because on paper, Curry with Giannis is not good. On paper, this is scary. Think with me. Curry is the shooter who changes the geometry of basketball. His gravity pulls 2, sometimes 3 defensive decisions at the same time. But even with all this attention, he still finds angles to kill difficult balls. On the other side, Giannis is an athletic tractor in his prime, a 2-time MVP, unstoppable when he finds space to attack the rim. Now imagine the pick and roll between the two. And I want you to actually imagine the defense trying to pick. If you switch, the big defender is stuck with the Curry, and this usually ends in 3 points or a foul. If he doesn't change and contain himself, Giannis gains lane and gets to the rim with an advantage. Doubles in the Curry. The short pass for Giannis's descent becomes a sentence. There is no comfortable answer. There is only the least worst option. And in playoffs, living on least worst is dying slowly. There's also the part about Giannis's physical moment. He would be dealing with a calf strain, something that could sideline him for 2 to 4 weeks, with the expectation of a healthy return around the new year. This matters because it puts the discussion on the clock. If there is a real chance of moving at this level, there is also the time pressure to build chemistry before the season enters the phase in which every game weighs as if it were a knockout game. Giannis is 29 years old, is at its peak. He has size, coordination, strength, and a defensive presence capable of changing entire possessions. When he is committed, he protects the rim, covers space, switches on the perimeter, becomes the type of piece that gives the team a new look. And if you put that next to Curry, the feeling is that suddenly the Golden State is back in the big conversation, back to the place where everyone, before playing against, counts. But none of this comes for free. And here's the part that really hurts. For Milwaukee to consider something like this, the conversation wouldn't be simple. What is speculated is a heavy package involving Draymond Green, Jonathan Kuminga, and Brandon Podziemski, 3 rotation players. 2 of them, the future in the form of a promise. And this is where you, as a fan, enter that internal conflict. Because you look at Draymond and you see history. See 2012 second round, the evolution, the defender of the year, the all-star, the guy who was a chess piece and also a hammer. He sees 4 titles and sees an entire identity supported by it. But at the same time, there is the cold part of basketball that no one likes to verbalize. Draymond is 34 years old. His offensive game isn't what it used to be. The score dropped, the impact changed. Defense and reading are still valuable, but it is no longer the same engine as before. Then the inevitable question appears. Hold Draymond for sin. Is time worth more than trying to give Curry a partner that can open a new title window? And on young people, the pain is different, because Kuminga and Podziemski are not nostalgia, they are possibility. Kuminga has flashes of being a two-handed athletic winger with the potential to become a big name. Podziemski has intelligence, shooting, maturity. He makes the game move. Giving up on both is basically saying, tomorrow can wait, because today has a 37-year Curry, and that won't happen again. And then you realize why this would be risky with enormous consequences, because it's a bet with everything on the table. If it works, you change the direction of the season and change the narrative of the Curry. If it goes wrong, you not only lose parts, you lose time, you lose continuity, and you also give away part of the future. But the world doesn't stop, and the other teams see that too. There is competition. Lakers, Knicks, and Heat appear to be interested if Milwaukee decides to restart the project. And it makes sense, because if Giannis enters the market, there is no ambitious team that will stand idly by. Every contender will sell the best speech possible. And why could Warriors feel competitive in this race? Because they would be able to offer a package that matches what a rebuilding team is looking for. Youth with a high ceiling, plus an established veteran who can help maintain immediate respect or become an asset in another negotiation. This type of package checks several boxes, as they say. And if Milwaukee is really at a point of doubt, this could turn into a real conversation. Now, let's imagine the Golden State cast if that happened, because that part also changes how you see everything. With Curry and Giannis as pillars, you have a base of superstars that in itself already puts the team on another level. And then there's Andrew Wiggins, who can provide defense and scoring on the wing, especially if he's consistent. In the rest, young people like Moses Moody and Trace Jackson-Davis could gain more responsibilities. And yes, the team would probably have to complete the squad with veterans with a minimum contract, people who know how to deal with pressure and who understand their role. And here comes a huge detail. The defensive identity changes, because without Draymond, you don't have the same type of defense that has become a trademark. That defense that exchanges, communicates, closes space with reading and malice. But at the same time, Giannis can be a defensive anchor in another style. It protects the rim, covers mistakes, alters attempts, and with a good scheme, you build an efficient defense even without being that historic defense. And in attack, honestly, that's where the imagination starts to run. Steve Kerr would have a full plate. You can use Curry's gravity on one side with cuts and blocks, while Giannis works the pole on the other. You can create actions in which the defense never knows if it will die on a three-pointer, a cut, or an attack on the rim. You can put Giannis as a Curry blocker and turn every possession into an impossible choice for the opponent. In a 7-game series, that's the kind of combination that changes matchups. OKC would still be strong, of course. Denver with Jokic would be a fascinating chess duel. Clippers and Lakers would have to reevaluate everything, because a Curry-Giannis duo changes the order of the West in many people's minds. But I'm not going to pretend that the emotional part doesn't exist, because it exists and weighs heavily. Draymond was chosen by the franchise, grew up here, became a leader here, won here. Seeing Draymond in another uniform feels wrong, almost as if a piece of history has been ripped out of place. But there is a phrase that, however harsh it may be, sums up the cruel side of sport. Titles are not won with feeling, are won with talent, strategy, and courage to make difficult decisions. And if you look at the history of the Warriors, you see this clearly. The franchise did not become a dynasty by being conservative. She took risks. Monta Ellis was replaced by an injured Andrew Bogut. There was a movement to make space and fit Kevin Durant. Huge decisions, which at the time divided fans, generated fear, generated anger, and in the end, helped to build what we celebrate. So when we discuss Draymond over Giannis, the question is not, is he handsome? The question is Curry the best real chance of winning another title? Because if it is, the franchise will be asked to act like a champion franchise, with enough coolness to think about legacy, not just affection. And I honestly believe that Draymond himself would understand the logic. He is too competitive to not understand the end goal. He wants to win, always wanted. Maybe it hurts. Maybe it hurts. Maybe it seems unfair. But he knows that time passes for everyone. He knows Curry doesn't have infinite seasons left. This is why timing is so important. Curry has already felt the weight of the quadriceps injury. Giannis is dealing with his calf but should be back healthy in January. And the trade deadline in February puts a clear limit on the table. If something like this is possible, it's the kind of negotiation you can't drag on forever. Because chemistry isn't born in a week. Defense doesn't become elite in 2 conversations. Champion team needs time and repetition. And I want to be fair. There is risk, and a big one. There is a risk that you will bet everything, and the fit will not be as automatic as it seems. There is a risk that you will weaken depth and feel it during the marathon of the season. There is a risk of injury, of adaptation, of pressure. There is also the risk of the future, because giving up Kuminga and Podziemski is saying our protection for after the Curry decreases. But then I'll ask you the question back in the most honest way possible. When you have a real chance to bring together 2 generational talents, do you protect yourself from fear, or do you chase greatness? Because in the end, that is what is being discussed. It's not just an exchange, it's a choice of direction. It's deciding whether the Golden State wants to experience a long, slow, careful transition, or whether it wants the Curry era to have another big chapter, one that no one forgets. And now I really want to hear from you, because this is the kind of subject that divides friends, divides groups, divides fans. Would you trade Draymond, Kuminga, and Podziemski for Giannis? Do you think it's worth sacrificing the future to try to win now? Do you believe Curry and Giannis would work together at the highest level when the game gets more physical and slower in the playoffs? What is your biggest fear in a bet like that? Losing your identity without Draymond, or losing your tomorrow without young people? Leave your comment, because I will read and respond, and I want to understand where you stand. And if you want to follow every update to this story, because this could get hot quickly in the coming weeks, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. This way you don't miss a single step in what's happening, and we follow along, calmly, with analysis, and with responsibility. And share this video with someone who lives the Golden State like you do, because this is the type of conversation that fans need to have as a community. The moment is great, and the consequences could be enormous. From here on, every decision counts. And now I want to close with you in the way this subject deserves, because this isn't just any speculation. It's one of those turning points that could define what the Warriors will be for the next few years. If this idea of bringing in Giannis really gains traction, the entire league will feel it. And if it doesn't happen, just the fact that this is being considered says a lot about the level of urgency inside. The question is no longer whether the Golden State will move. The question is how much it is willing to risk to give Curry one last real run. So do the following. Before you leave, tell me in the comments, honestly, from 0 to 10, how much you would make this change. Do you hand over Draymond, Kuminga, and Podziemski for Giannis, or do you hold the future? I want to see the real opinion of Warriors Nation, because this is going to divide everyone, and I will respond to the strongest comments. And if you want to follow this story the right way, without missing any details, without falling into an empty headline, I left the Golden State Warriors News Today playlist in the pinned comment. Click on it now and binge watch, because there I update everything. Rumors, behind the scenes, analysis, what's behind the decisions, and how it changes game by game. If that bomb goes off for good, you'll want to be one step ahead. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and activate the bell, because from now on, the season could turn around in a single movement. And if you are real Warriors, you won't want to know last. Click on the playlist in the pinned comment and come with me now, because the next video could be exactly the one that confirms the turnaround we've been waiting for.